hose if I have to.
No, I guess you're gonna question. I bet you're more here.
Yeah, just leave it there. I'll get to it in a minute. Get this meeting.
You got your meeting.
Party started here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, there's a big stack.
Sunday, Jeff?
Works for me.
Okay, I'm gonna call to order our public safety meeting for September 26th. Roll call.
Counselor Gibb?
Here.
Counselor Ensel?
Here.
Mayor Reed?
Here.
Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Ensel?
Here again.
Counselor Moore? Oh, I didn't.
Still here.
Twin brothers here.
Okay, so item number one, reports from department representatives and discussion with counselors. Number one, report from the Parking Violations Bureau for August. Anything to report? Anything to report for the Parking Violations Bureau?
No.
Nothing? Okay. Agenda item number two. Agenda items brought forward from departments to be approved by committee and recommended to council. There's a lot of stuff.
Sorry for all the budget adjustments, it's that time of the year.
Okay. Okay, so I will take a motion.
I will make a motion to move items 2, 1 through 12 to the agenda.
I'll second that.
Counselor Gibb?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to discuss any of these things, or do we want to leave it all for the meeting tonight?
I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary or extraordinary about any of these requests or resolutions.
I do want to talk about the dog park for a minute. Doesn't really have anything to do with the public safety aspect of it, but when I read the document that was attached to this, and I wrote down the language, where the city, Public Works is going to be tasked with maintaining that. Counselor Moore, did you read that as well? And I'm reminded of the list of things that Public Works is doing and all their tasks and duties, mounting and mounting and mounting, and they're going to be responsible for maintaining that.
Okay, I'm sorry, what were you?
So item number one about the dog park, which I'm completely in favor of, I think that's a fantastic thing. But it does say in the language of the,
Well, DPW already does maintain that park. We're actually hoping that the Realtor Group will take on a greater onus of maintenance and actually relieve DPW of some of those responsibilities and make it more maintenance-free too, is our hope.
Patrick has
Is that
said
your
this. Patrick has said this, and I think that when we have our infrastructure meeting, we should bring this up next week. I would like to see more receptacles for waste all over the city, all over. We don't have nearly enough of that, if at all. And, people let their pets just go wherever. So I'd like to look into how much that would cost to get that installed, ordered. Maybe that's something we can talk about next week.
Yeah, I had discussed that with Mr. Brody previously too. I think there's an ideal number. If you have too many of them out there, people start bringing their household garbage and things if they're too accessible. So I guess there's a happy medium, and I guess we could discuss what that might be.
I think we really should.
But I think, are you also talking about having doggy bags?
That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
okay, no.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, you're not talking about garbage?
No,
Oh,
talking
okay.
about bags for dog waste.
Yes.
Which is
I'm
almost
all for
nowhere,
that.
yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. Is there anything else that we want to talk about? Or do we want to just leave it for the floor?
Well, we have time if anybody does have any questions about the items.
one item added today, number 10, I think, or was it already there?
It was there, but you didn't have that.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I read it very, very quickly before the meeting, or, before the meeting today, and, it looks as though they've dropped their property assessment. Okay, they no longer want to dispute it.
Correct, yeah. And our lawyer did a very good job at prevailing on this.
Is it safe to assume then that they're pleased with the amount that they're paying in taxes?
Well, I don't know if I've ever met a taxpayer that's pleased with their assessment, but they're willing to accept it.
Now, this is the building that's being turned into like a dollar or something, right?
That's the Rite Aid, I think.
Right, it's the current Rite Aid
Yeah, the
building
former-
across from
former
Starbucks.
wall.
mhm.
Is that the one
That's
that turned
right.
it into a dollar?
That's what I just
Yeah,
asked.
they're turning Dollar General.
It's gonna be one of those on every corner before you know it.
It already is.
Along with all
One
the
of those.
drugstores.
Yeah.
Item 7, I imagine that work is similar to what they just did out on Route 22 last
Right. A
last
little
week.
bit longer though, you see that this is,
Mhm.
I think it's so it's.
So I guess, once
entire
again, my request would be that there's ample enough communication with the public and so on, so that everyone knows, because Miller Street is a heavily traveled
Mhm.
street with the post office and everything on it, so.
Do you know what this work is going to be?
Not only will the railroad make that crossing a little bit smoother and do some work on it, but the city will also go in at the same time and do some pavement work. If any of you've driven along there, you know the pavement's kind of rough right
There
there.
are some issues with bicyclists going over that area.
Well,
too,
there's a
that it
huge
was-
gap between the rail and the, okay.
Mayor, do you know if we have plans to resurface that section of 22 anytime soon?
Which part of
Where,
22?
on the south end where they just completed the rail crossing improvement? The reason I ask that question is because right now it's a great speed bump.
Mhm.
You know, you go up, you're on the tracks, and you go down. And, you know, if you don't know that it's there, it can knock the bottom out of your car, so.
Hmm? They were gonna have to go to 22? Okay.
Oh, good.
Having traveled Walworth Street the other day, I'm very thankful that is on the list.
Probably our worst.
Yeah,
street.
that was, I didn't realize the condition of it until I drove it the other day.
It appears as though they've started the work there, the preliminary things, and it won't be long. I'll just wait for the right weather to come.
We're also doing the final contracting. MLD is almost finished with Protection Alley, and DPW will get in there, be able to do the paving and the concrete work in through there as well. It's gonna be nice looking pretty soon. We got another handful of streets they still want to do yet.
What are we talking about?
We're just looking at the agenda items from the public safety, and we're just talking about a couple of, any questions that we had.
Item 9, we're very pleased that the county is upgrading their parking lot. And, you know, as you know, it's in response to our parking enforcement that began a couple of years ago, and that affected a lot of people who try to use the county building. So they redesigned, first of all, their Oak Street lot and have their employees parking more in the Oak Street lot. Our planner is looking to see if we may want to have a crosswalk across Cornelia, because you've probably seen a lot of people jaywalking to get to the county building from the Oak Street lot.
Oh, I do.
But anyway, a lot more employees are now out there, and that frees up the county to redesign the county lot right behind the government center for more parking there, of which, as you know, the city's collaborating with them to the tune of $64,000, but we're also gonna garner about 60 new public spaces that will be administered by the city as a collaboration to help with their parking problems. And they will serve parking for their jurors, et cetera, as well, who would normally be on the city parking otherwise. And I know that the chief's had some headaches when you have a very large jury pool come in, and, you know, we do enforcement now, so this should really alleviate a lot of those concerns. And they're ready to start construction almost immediately now.
When you mentioned the crosswalk across Cornelia, I've had actually, glad you brought that up. I've had quite a few people ask me if we could perhaps get a crosswalk across Court where Marion to over to the government center.
That may make sense to a lot of people across there as well.
Yeah.
Our planner, Melina Tamer, does these, as you know, and I'll ask her to look at that one too.
Thank you.
Could we, Richard, could you clarify items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 individually?
Can I ask a question about the item 9 first, before we get there?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Where's the 64,000 gonna come from? Is it part of a capital project? Is it part of, grant money for expanding parking?
It's not part of grant money now.
Unrelated to the DRI.
Well, we could potentially use some of the FRB money, but because it's the county doing the work technically and not the city, I'm not sure if that'll qualify. We would have to check.
So the 64,000, is that going to city property or county property?
It goes to the city property.
No.
$64,000 worth of work that we're paying for essentially doing on city property.
So we need to do a capital project for that.
But the city won't own that land, right? It's
The city
county's.
will own almost all the land on which the work is being performed. I
Oh,
believe
really?
there's some of it that goes onto county property. We're essentially paying to extend the current government center lot to Oak Street and the improvements related to that.
So then we could capitalize it, I think is,
Yeah.
Richard's looking at.
Source of funds is what I'm looking at, so capital project is sounding right. Okay, all right, items 2 through, which ones? General fund
6.
budget increase of $12,330. I sent the budget memos along, I don't know if you've all gotten them. I have them right here. $12,330 is taxes on municipal land. When I budgeted those originally, they came in higher than 2.2% increase. And the unallocated insurance had to be increased because we were quoted a figure that didn't include the terrorist insurance that we had to pay for separately, so that created an overbudget situation there. Data processing, temporary pay, and finance office temp pay, that's for when we had a employee out on pregnancy leave and we had to hire temporary services, and we're kind of double paying because the person had sick leave and was getting paid for that time, but nothing was budgeted in temporary pay. Contract services at $250, that was full. It's a small item. Oh, that's the Burke Group analysis for the GASB 75 work. It's supposed to be $7,000 and it came in at $7,250. And then we have a decrease in audit fees of $920. And so the net adjustment to the unassigned unappropriated fund balance of $12,330. So that was finance related things on number 2. Number 3, $2,500 for the parking lot. That was a request from Matt to just transfer some funds from one parking lot, budget item to 2 others that were underfunded, and the other one is got the surplus in it. Number 4, 12,800. That's the same budget adjustment for the water fund as was for the previous one for the finance office, taxes on municipal land. Once again, there's a budget deficit of $2,400 because of the estimate coming in lower than a 2.2% increase, or higher than administrative separation, Chad left, and there wasn't anything budgeted for his separation. His cost repairs come in excess of what you had budgeted, and there's not enough left in our contract services for the normal budgeting of the Otis elevator contract for annual maintenance. I think the additional costs that you had to pay for were new pull alarms, fire alarms in the city court building. Unexpected.
Wait, the city court has an elevator?
Yeah, I think so, but the Otis elevator
News to
agreement
me.
is here, part of the municipal buildings. Your fire alarms were put into the city court is what created the over budget situation or contract service situation. She has to make a transfer to cover the Otis elevator contract being posted through as a requisition. Fire alarms were something that was requested and not budgeted. And last but not least, the one that catches everybody's eye because it's such a big number. The best way to explain this is that the auditors decided that all the DRI prepaid spending the city was gonna do to make sure that these grants were put in place, they consider it to be income and expense. And the way I was treating it was, we're funding these expenses, we're tracking them, and we're moving them into a prepaid expense receivable account from the state. Because the city's supposed to be reimbursed for all these upfront funds. But the auditors are saying, no, we think it should be income and expense. And the distortion there is, you're gonna look at budget comparisons for expense 2 years from now, you're gonna see this huge number in income and expense for community development expenses, and it's not gonna make sense. Because it's not part of our normal budgeting, and these funds are all gonna be reimbursable, so. But they concluded they had to show them as income and expense items like this to stay within the government regs for financial statement reporting. So what you're seeing there is a reclassification of everything that's coming out of expenses that we were gonna say is prepaid and receivable from the state, now it has to be revenue and expense. Part of it, however, does improve city property, the $2.9 million streetscape and riverfront grant. So that's why that's going into a capital project.
Does that affect the 2020 budget in any way?
Don't know. We'll see how much more has to be spent in 2020 for the prepaid funding that we have to do for all the DRI grants. Matt?
I didn't budget anything specifically for DRI or reimbursable expenses in 2020 because up until the auditors raised an issue with it.
And
But we're spending money to Saratoga Associates, White and Bird Group, and now it's Ware Design. And if that spending's gonna be done at the end of 2019, then no, nothing can carry over into 20. So it just depends on if it's finished.
if we are not reimbursed before the end of 2019 and all this money has come out of the general fund, then we'll have a negative fund balance for the year, I would guess.
This isn't gonna create a negative fund balance because you adjust the equation on both sides. You're increasing income and expense. So the equity
Okay.
and fund balance section stays alone. What is
Okay,
affected,
yes, okay,
what is affected is the cash that's advanced that we don't have in the bank.
okay,
And we're waiting to get that back from the state. And so far, I think we've spent, last year we spent $292,000 on these same items, and I had to reclassify those items to increase expense and revenue in our financial statements, because the auditors just wouldn't back off with, they're gonna be reimbursed, they're not really expenses in the city, but they couldn't conclude that. So that was $292 spent last year, and I think this year we're up to $188,000 so far.
mhm.
That's money actually spent, right, 900,
All spent. Yeah, balance, part of this is the spending and part of this is the encumbering for, purchase orders that are gonna spend more. But last year we spent $292, this year $188, so that's how much the city's out and waiting for reimbursement from the state, for which we've gotten back a grand total of $13,152. And you gotta wait forever to get the money from the state, because they say these things have to be fully paid for and completed
few of them are, you can submit periodic reimbursement requests, and that's where we got the 13,000, but the majority of the projects are benchmark based, where we're not able to submit for reimbursement until the entire project is complete.
It has to be complete.
Has to be complete, yes.
Okay,
So we could be out these funds for some time.
sounds like it. Anything we can do about that, or we just have to live with it?
Well, we could do short-term internal borrowing if necessary, but that all has to be replaced by the end of the year. If one fund borrows from another internally, we can do that. We just want to make sure that we reimburse it by the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
We wouldn't really, I don't see the need for having to go outside to do financing to pull these funds in, because we're gonna have enough cash flow to cover them through this year and the end of next year, but we'd certainly like to get them back
Sure.
sooner than that. But if the projects have to be complete, it's gonna take some time.
Right. Okay. Good to know.
The good news is 6.9 million of the $10 million worth of DRI funding, 4 million was part of the the Dirt Street project, and that goes directly to the developer prime companies. 2.9 million was for the streetscape and riverfront access project, and as Rick said, that is physical improvements, so it's a capital project, so you can go out and borrow for it, so the amount of money we'll actually have to front is far less than what you might expect based on the $10 million grant.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on items that are going to be on the agenda? Okay. Item number 3, any old business? Any old business we wanted to discuss? Peter, any old business?
No, just on new business, I
Okay.
wanted to.
So
Yeah,
I
for the
did
record.
finally get the reports. The council knows that I had requested some overtime reports and activity reports for Zone 2, and I did get that information. Number 4, new business.
I know earlier I spoke to both Chief Ritter and Chief Lawless, but I wanted to bring it out for open discussion. I was approached by some residents up in Trafalgar Eastgate neighborhood about Halloween and the potential of maybe making some of the streets through there one way, going in one direction, and kind of looping around and coming out the other way, one way for a couple of hours. And it seemed to have, from what I was told, a great deal of support from the neighborhood. So it's just something I think if we could look at, and I know that we both said that potentially there would have to be some volunteer buy-in by the neighborhood to help with the enforcement of it. Having been there a few times during Halloween, I can relate to how populated it is. I think one woman told me that last year they had in excess of 600 trick-or-treaters at their house. So it's a lot of candy and a lot of calories, and a lot of sugar. But anyway, I will get back to them and let them see if they're certainly in the preliminary stages, but to see if there would be some volunteers that might be willing to kind of work certain intersections to help with the traffic flow.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other items for new business? Yeah. Actually, you know what? There is something I did want to talk about, the budget process. Since
Right.
I'm very new to doing that. And we're gonna have, our budget evening is coming up on, I have the handout from last week. 24th and the 31st. So, what do we do on those evenings exactly?
Okay.
And you said that there's the department heads create a narrative?
Yes,
Okay, and there's a budget narrative for each department?
yes, and
Okay.
that all of them combined are the budget narrative for the whole city.
Okay, so what do I do?
Uh,
What does that mean exactly? The budget narrative, that?
I think you asked through the mayor if the department heads can complete their budget narrative before that date of October 24th and have it available for the council to read.
All right, so that is
That's really
before the
about it.
24th,
Mhm.
just so you guys know.
I just sent an email, and you probably haven't seen it yet. I just sent it this afternoon before I came to the council
Okay.
meeting. It describes how to work with the budget itself for your various departments for which you are a liaison. And then also to use the council's 5-year plan to compare the two and see if you like how the mayor's budget is meeting our 5-year plan that we approved back in May. Do
So
that-
looking at their budget for next year,
Yes,
does it work in with the 5-year budget?
yes,
Basically what we're looking at.
that's
correct?
one of the items for
Is that
sure.
correct, Mayor?
Yes.
Well, they have a lot of flexibility in how they do their narrative. Mostly they're explaining how they put their budget together, and what their priorities are, what they hope to accomplish, et cetera.
Any
And
cha-
those narratives are submitted to Beth for distribution?
They are, yeah. And they all know that they have to have them prepared for the night when they do their presentations.
Okay, so that will also include what's allotted for every individual category of their budget, right?
So then Richard prepares also his packet for each department's budget for that night as well, so you'll have that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I can pull a report that shows what they budget, so where they are year to date against their 2019, what they've projected on the mayor's budget for 2020, and it also shows what was there last year for actual results from 2018.
Now, will that vary from the budget worksheets we had when we met over the summertime? Is it going to be different from that?
No, it should be the same.
Should be the same.
What I'll pull is the individual ones that I send to the departments that they fill in, which shows their revenue and expense items, separate from the entire report that's 59 pages long.
Okay.
So you just
So there'll
get-
be some changes, because I went in and changed items as well, right? Not very many, but I did.
I'm not sure what you mean by change. If there's been a budget revision from the 2019 budget, that'll show from one column to the next. There's a 2018 actual results column. There's a 19 budget, there's revisions to the 19 budget, there's the actual for 19, and then there's the mayor's budget for 2020. Now, I've rolled the mayor's budget forward into the common council budget for 2020, and the only change I've made to the council budget so far is that the retirement cost has increased as far as the projection. That's the only thing that's different from the mayor's budget that I have so far.
Okay.
Another important exercise is to compare the 2018, 2019 projected budgets with the 2020 proposed budget to see if there are any increases or decreases in any of the line items, and then to understand why those increases
Justify it.
exist, and be able to answer the questions if the other counselors ask you, why is this larger or why is it smaller?
I think you also sent out the 5-year plan, just so we all have that in front of us too, to see how any changes we make this year is either consistent with that plan or et cetera.
So if any of the department heads didn't give me a projected 2019 along with their budget for 2020, I'll have to go back and estimate where we're gonna be for those line items for 2019 before you get the reports.
Okay. Okay. Any other new business? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Second,
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
roll call?
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Renzel?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes. Begin our work session. We do have a couple of guests here. Don Lee's gonna talk if you've seen the exhibit downstairs as people come through the halls, on the water cycle and salmon, and he's gonna speak to that and other issues of mutual concern with the stewardship of the Saranac River.
Sure. I'm Don Lee. This is Rich Redmond. He's the current president of the chapter of Lake Champlain Chapter of Toronto Limited. We started many, many years ago. Dr. Engineer Mariana was instrumental in getting that going.
Oh, really?
Your counselor is one of our members. And I'd like to talk to you about why this is the International Year of the Salmon. The Lake Champlain Basin Program took charge of this. And the panels were designed by them, but input from local people and local history. I'm from Whitehall originally, a little town called Whitehall. And once upon a time, I gave a little history lesson, it was Skeensboro. And a gentleman by the name of Philip Skeen was a Tory. If you remember your American history, a Tory was someone who was sympathetic to the British Crown. Well, Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold booted him out of here on a ship and sent him back to England. And that's when they built the American fleet that fought the Battle of Valcour. The salmon were coming in the river about that time of year, and the ships came up that they had built, the gunboats they built, and a couple of Benedict Arnold's gunboats came into the mouth of the river, and a gentleman had a fishing weir, and asked if they could fix his nets. So they fixed his nets for him, had a big storm, I guess, and they ripped them out. And so in payment, he gave him 75 salmon to pay for helping the thing. Also, this is the time when the salmon are running in the river. If you haven't, your river walk is outstanding, by the way. You got some places you probably have to do a little repair. That's down behind the college. That's going to it is eroding. We'd like to help you with that and try to remove it if we could. But if you want to see some salmon caught, if you walk along the footpath, you'll see people fishing for salmon. Up that area is mostly all fly fishing, and most of the fishermen, a lot of them are from Canada, but most of them from around here. And you'll see them release most of the fish that they catch. They're very healthy this time of year. And I've been doing a program with the kids in the school called Adopt a Salmon Program, where we take the little section of the river, so to speak, and put a 20-gallon tank in the schools, put rocks in the bottom of the river, and then we put some salmon in there. When we take them up to the hatchery, they watch the eggs come out of the female salmon, milk or sperm come out of the males, and they fertilize them with 2 or 3 males. And then when they come back from the Christmas vacation, we do that, put about 300 eggs in each tank, and the kids get to watch the eggs turn into an alvin or sac fry, and then to a little fry, and they put those in the river. The reason we do that, we're trying to teach them about the environment, and you and I know, if we start talking about the environment, you put some people to sleep, especially the young kids. But if I tell them about the salmon that are in the river, and how important they are to the world, and how important they are been in the history of this community here, especially the Saranac River. The Saranac River was the most prolific river in all the Lake Champlain watershed of all the salmon. Even though it wasn't the largest access for salmon, it was the most prolific. Up in Morrisonville, where the salmon would be up in there in the fall this time of year, buckboards wouldn't be allowed to cross the river. They couldn't, because there's so many salmon that would scare their horses, they wouldn't go in. Then when they slowed down a little bit, the farmers would come with pitchforks and a buckboard, and out in the middle of the river, they could load the back of a wagon with 18, 25-pound salmon in about an hour. That leads us to really believe and understand that the salmon that are in Lake Champlain right now are landlocked, and they're not the current salmon that we had. But once upon a time, the salmon came in through the Atlantic Ocean up into the St. Lawrence River, up into the Richelieu River. But of course, as you know, that's the Grand Prairie in Canada, so they have floodplain dams down there to prevent from flooding, just like they do. It causes us problems, because we know that Lake Champlain or Lake George, they send their water to us, and then the Canadians won't let our water go out. So certain times of year, we do occasionally have a problem with the salmon. The other thing we'd like to talk to you about is we've been advocating for years to get the salmon up to their traditional spawning ground, which is Kent's Falls. That was a natural barrier, and that's as far as the salmon used to get. A few could get up further, but generally it was always right there. It was the traditional spawning habitat. From there all the way down into behind the college. But Zephaniah Platt in about 1819 or early 1800s built a dam, which was rebuilt in the 1903, which we call it Imperial Mill Dam. It was built to supply water and low-head power for the plant. Along came the Canadian Hydro problem, or Canadian Hydro that you have today, that supplies your current electricity at very low rates. That was no longer needed, and the dam has been in disrepair. It's a Class C high hazard dam, which means that you will have lost, if that dam ever has a problem and it goes out, You'll lose loss of life, property damage, and infrastructure will get damaged. We wanted to take it out. We, I mean, being Trout Unlimited, the fishermen, have asked DEC to take it out. They don't necessarily want to take it out. They know that they bought some property on the north side of the dam, if you look on the, which is the berm area. And when they were going to, of course, you remember Governor Pataki, when he was the governor, a couple of us guys went up to Lake Champlain Mall, and he came to the mall to speak to everybody, and we raised some signs saying, hey, Governor, we would like to see a fish ladder. He didn't know what the heck it was, and Ron Stafford didn't know what it was, but they soon found out, and the governor thought it was a great idea and allocated 1.5 million. And I've used some of that money today to do sediment studies and stuff like that. There's still about 1.1, 1.2 million left of that money. And we want them to build we wanted him to build a fish ladder. But in current times, looking at what happened to your trailer park there at Underwood Avenue and places like that, when that ice dammed up behind there, it was a very cold winter, and then finally we had that storm, lifted the ice over, the ice came over and broke up, and of course you had the ice jam down by Underwood, and it inconvenienced a whole bunch of people. We would like to see the dam gone, but DEC says no, we're gonna build a fish ladder. They wanna take the dam down 18 inches so that it no longer is considered a high hazard dam. But my position to you folks is it's still a hazard. If that dam ever goes out, you're gonna lose property. Maybe not lice, but I still think it's a hazard. I think the best option is to take the dam out completely. You don't have it, the Runner River, you wouldn't have the ice damming that you have today. One of the problems, the other problems we have is there's 2 dams upriver, up in the High Falls area, that are allowed to pond water. They can pond up to 90% of the water. They only have to release 10% of the water. Well, when they do that, on occasion, they can just about dry the river up when you can skip across the river. In the wintertime, that becomes a real problem, because that's when you have your anchor ice, and that's when the ice jam and damming starts occurring. So, Trout Unlimited is intervening in those cases, and we're not going to allow that. We're trying to go to battle with them, and we hope you guys would get on board, so that would protect your city as well. But we would like maybe some consideration. I don't know what your consideration, ladies and gentlemen, on the dam, or how you feel about it, but we think it's time to eliminate it. A lot of it's an unused dam. It's not used for anything. I don't know. I know the gentleman that owns the dam. I understand why he wanted to keep it. He thought he was going to do a little low-head hydro, but there's really not a market for that. It'd be very cost ineffective for him to do that.
So I think we've had, well, the city's obviously put tens of thousands of dollars into taking care of the Underwood flood. The police and fire a couple of years ago, and DPW invested a lot in trying to clean that up. The state put, I think, upwards of a couple of $1 million into that. I think about 10 years, 15 years ago, we had the mobile home park near the cemetery that had to be bought out because of flooding and flood danger, because that river's just not flowing as it naturally did at one time, and sediments building up and all that kind of stuff. It seems like we're putting not only millions and millions and millions of dollars into this, but we're also taking the risk for the city, the liability, if that dam ever did break. We're investing millions of dollars into dam safety elsewhere in our network. I guess I don't see the argument for not taking the dam out. The city's been supportive of that idea. There was an issue of what to do with the sediment, and the DEC did at one time ask the city if they could put the sediment on some city land that adjoins that. At first we asked them, well, what are you proposing, blah, blah. So we finally ended up working out that if they wanted us to take their sediment,
Right.
we actually would for free. So I don't see the impediments. I did understand that Imperial Dam had said they would like that water source there in case there's ever a fire at Imperial Mill. But of course, the city's got 3 times more water than we need. We have no problem with water flow. And it all goes downhill. It's not like in a fire that the pumps aren't going to work, because we have a pressure-fed system. So I think we completely understand your sentiments, and we're trying to merely preserve the lives of people right underneath it. So we really encourage you to keep up that discussion and
We're
bring
fighting
that
that
back.
battle, but we would need some help. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And the salmon, of course, is an indicator of the environment. If you have good salmon, you get good watershed. And most of you maybe do not know, but slightly less than 1% of the world's water supply is safe to drink. And of course, around here, we have an abundance of it, and we misuse it and abuse it and stuff like that. And we try to teach the kids about the watersheds and all those kind of things. And the salmon are a lot of fun to catch. I'm a big proponent of salmon fishing, and I do that a lot.
There's also the great economic impact that it's gonna have with the fishery, with fish going up another 10 miles or whatever they can to spawn. I mean, it's fantastic recreation, and a lot of money can come in for tourism, for hotels, meals, gasoline, all that stuff, you know.
Yeah, that's great, and of course, the river running more freely is gonna be good for kayakers, and
Exactly.
we have it running through the downtown as a major center point of our DRI, and we're investing a lot in the wastewater treatment plant because you guys appreciate the water cycle and taking care of both the lake and the river, so yeah, we're right on board, absolutely. Maybe other counselors.
I guess
comment too.
my question, you mentioned about the potential economic impact with fishermen and anglers coming to fish for salmon. Have you approached the county at all about?
That, we're thinking about going to
No,
legislators.
We're talking to them as well.
Yeah.
We've talked before, I just keep I'm trying to poke the hornet's nest, if you will, to get some action on this thing. It's been there long enough as far as I'm concerned. We started this thing, it's been over 30 years now that we've been actively pursuing, trying to get fish passage. Initially, we thought we'd get fish passage, and that would be terrific. When they built the hydro project up there on the interstate, it's a little power plant right there.
Right.
They have the open boat that comes down through. They did build a fish ladder up there. But if you know anything about fish ladders, they're not the best method of getting fish upriver. The best way to get fish upriver is have open, free flowing. They took the dam out down in Willsboro. I don't know if you've been following that at all. And now they have natural reproducing salmon going about 80, 60, 70 miles upriver. They're spawning in different places. They've opened up a whole bunch of the river. This is probably the first time they said in over a couple hundred years that they've had.
Is there a ladder at the dam at Treadwell's Mills?
There is.
Not, right.
Treadwell Mills there is.
Right,
yes.
on
Right
the
there
military
on the
turnpike.
military turnpike, yes, there is. It's hard to see, but as you're going across from north to south, it'll be right there on your left, on the left side of the river looking downstream. You'll see they have a bypass pipe that you look out there, you'll see this water shooting out this pipe. That's of the little salmon par and the smolt. Smolt is a salmon that's getting ready to mature. They back down the river, they go up, they bypass the fish ladder and they're going over the dam, and that's how they get down to the Lake Champlain.
I appreciate you calling it salmon and not salmon.
My ward is intersected by Saranac River, both sides.
Right.
And I wonder if any of the neighborhoods in my ward are in danger of being flooded should that dam
Oh, absolutely.
fail.
I mean, if that dam went out, the money, the trailer park that you have, that they just built on this, but
Yeah.
there's a good chance it's still gonna get flooded.
How about further downstream, say at the college, there's a really low-lying area there?
It's a big area. I know that back lawn has been flooded before.
It
And
has.
and it has taken out probably about 100 yards of your paved walk there at one time.
Right, it
And
did.
we've asked some folks to take a look at that and we wanna do some plantings and trees and stuff to hold the bank, but it's gonna need more than that. It's probably gonna need some cribbing in there in a couple places where it really shoots in there, especially the ice in the springtime is what really damages it.
You'd want to look at FEMA's floodplain maps and kind of look at that and see
Okay.
how far that extends to each side of the river.
Okay, I personally live in the area they call the flats, and I just wonder if we'd be subject to flooding if that dam failed.
I'm not an expert, I'm not a hydrologist, I'm just a fisherman, and I consider myself a sportsman. No, I've dealt with this before, and I used to be the building inspector at the town of Plattsburgh, so I know about the floodplain maps and stuff, so that's a good area to.
So the FEMA maps or
FEMA maps, take
floodplain
a
maps
look at,
would be a
yes.
good place. Okay. Another question is, like, when we look at the river now say in the spring, it's flowing fast and a lot of water in there, and this time of year now it's down to nothing. Are you saying that would be moderated by the removal of the dam? And
Yes, you'd have free flowing river, when the water's flowing, what happens is behind the dam, it's bad for, here's a couple of things it's bad for. One, you have salmon coming up, there are polarized species of fish, trout and salmon. So they're gonna go up a fish ladder, they're gonna jump up what's behind it. A pond that's been sitting there, very hardly even flowing, it's very warm water. It's very detrimental to them, and they're gonna lose some of it, probably gonna die. So the other aspect you're talking about for ice and stuff like that, flowing water, yes, it'll freeze, it'll anchor to the bottom sometimes, and you'll have some, but it burns, the moving water will actually prevent it from freezing a lot. And that's why the eggs, the salmon eggs, and they put them in a very fast ripple. The female will make a red about the size of a wash tub, and she'll make a depression with her tail, make it about probably 4 to 5 inches deep. And she gets upstream, deposits her eggs, and 2 or 3 males will deposit their sperm. And don't ask me how they get fertilized, knowing how we make it, but I mean, they do, and those eggs survive, almost all of them survive, and they kind of bounce down, because she takes all the silt, all the rocks. The eggs kind of bounce like a pinball machine, they go to the lowest point, they go down underneath those rocks, and that's how they survive. And they don't, the race field will never get frozen over. That's, I mean, she wouldn't put them in an area that does that, the female salmon. I mean, that's nature's way, and the river does not freeze when it's moving that fast. So, right now, I mean, we've had some rainy days. We had last weekend, we had pretty good rain, but you notice the river didn't come up. That's because they started ponding more water, building up they were low on water too, so they started ponding their water, and we're only allowing 10% to go. The river didn't come up. Actually, it went down a little bit. Now, how does that happen when you get rain? It shouldn't be that way.
Right.
And of course, remember one year when they had, the gentleman was doing the sediment study on the impoundment up there at Imperial Dam, and unfortunately the motor of the boat quit or something, and he got washed into the thing, and the poor guy went through the spillway doors, actually broke through, and then they shut the river right off, and it was right when the salmon had already spawned, and all these reds down behind Allen Street. If you ever want to see that, I mean, it's almost like going to Alaska when you see the salmon spawning. You can go down there to that park. The park, it was the old trailer park, which you have a nice, beautiful park there. Thank you. A lot of fishermen use that to have their sandwiches and stuff when they come fishing. And there's a lot of salmon you can see there, but down towards the very end of it, towards Allen Street end of it, a little bit south, you'll see an area probably about half the size of a football field, maybe 45, 50 acres. And you'll see a bunch of salmon in there, nose to tail, just spawning in there in the fall. About the first week in November, you'll see that. So
Wow.
that's, I mean, we really have a tremendous fishery here. I go to Nova Scotia on the Margaret River, which is one of the really nice rivers in Nova Scotia. Go salmon fishing, wild salmon, no impediments on the river, wild river. If I catch 1 or 2 salmon, I've had a great trip. Like up there for 10 days. If I come down here when the run really gets going, if I don't catch 2 or 3 salmon a night, there's something wrong. I mean, and everybody, and you hear people catch 4 or 5 salmon a day and stuff like that. It's a tremendous fishery we have, and it's a little known fact, and but the secret's getting out, and it'd be nice to see the fish get up to their natural habitat. So the bobcat, the people kicked and screamed about the bobcat. They didn't want to take out the dam. They liked to look at the impoundment, but now that it's out, it didn't really change the river that much. They still have their one thing they have to do, they're trying to put their dry hybrid in a spot that's a little more convenient for them, but other than that, that's the only inconvenience they've had.
One of the biggest things with Willsboro Dam coming out was, I worked for NRCS and ran the field office here in Plattsburgh for 27 years. And the dam there used to hold that water back, and it would ice jam in every spring, and they'd have problems with flooding when the old school was there. And now that the dam's gone, there's no more anchor ice, there's no more flooding, everything just flushes right through there. It flushes the sediment out, cleans it all out, and you get a beautiful fishery.
So as Don mentioned, I've been involved with Trout Unlimited for years. I've also been specifically
That's
involved with
perfect.
this project. So you had mentioned you were seeking some consideration from the council. Are you looking for a resolution of support or a resolution targeted
Anything you
towards the
can do.
DEC?
And I would just hope that you would be contacting DEC and maybe putting forth your position, get together and put a position that maybe the dam is not needed anymore. And if it's not needed, it would be better for recreation, for kayakers and stuff like that open up that river. By the way, the little Indian Rapids Dam that's at the very end of the runway, the hydro project that's up there on the interstate, they will be responsible to take, we're doing a study right now, we're tagging some salmon with Dr. Myhook, Tim Myhook, and we bought the telemetry devices. They put them down their mouth, and with a little bust of air, and it goes in, and little antenna comes out, and they'll eventually spit that out, but they'll swim around, and we can see if they'll try to get upriver, and we're trying to see if that's a velocity barrier for the salmon. If that is, and we think it is, they'll have to remove that at their cost, not anybody, not our cost, or the cities or the town.
So that notice could come in the form of a letter from the mayor, or it could come in the form of a resolution from the council?
I think
or
the
both?
whole council would be, with the
Well,
mayor's.
if we passed a resolution, then couldn't the mayor write DEC saying that?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, either or both.
We
yeah.
have to-
Yeah.
Is that something you'd be inclined to want to do? Just get that together?
I mean,
Yes,
I would favor it.
Yeah,
yes.
I would too.
And then I could put that together, I have a lot of the background
I was
knowledge.
gonna say, Mr. Sneller has all that information, so he's been right with us from the beginning. He's our pro sir. Thank you.
We also have a movie this Saturday night at Plattsburgh State College. It's called Live the Stream. It's about Joe Humphreys, who's a Penn State fly fishing instructor. And it's about stream ecology and his life. He's 80-some years old. He's still fishing. He ice skates. He does all kinds of neat stuff. But a lot of it is about the river, the ecology of the river, take care of the river, and the benefits of having a quality trout or salmon stream. So I'll leave this here with you. It's free. It's free.
I can put it up
Okay.
on
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
very much, folks, and
Thank you
thanks for
very
the
much.
display downstairs.
Appreciate it, folks.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any items on the agenda you'd like to have a little bit of additional discussion? I know you had a chance to discuss many of these items during the special, or the committee meeting. How about council reports? We've got the regular reports in your package. Anybody like to proffer additional reports, beginning with, Councilor McFarland is not here. Hmm? Okay. Let's move on to city infrastructure, Councilor Moore.
I didn't have any reports, but I did have a question. One of the property owners on Protection Avenue was wondering where they would be putting their garbage receptacles after, or during the project and after the project, what we are planning to do there. If there isn't anybody here from Public Works, but he was very concerned that he's a very good citizen, and he wants to make sure that he's got everything together there, so I don't know if it's possible to get them together with Public Works to know what they're gonna need to do in the future.
I know the Public Works were trying to ensure that there was adequate spaces for the various bins, and I'm sure there's some city codes that specify how bins can be placed out in days where there isn't a garbage pickup, et cetera. So we'll have to research that farther and maybe we can talk to DPW next week during the infrastructure meeting.
Very good, thanks. That's all I had.
Finance and Budget, Councilor Kelly?
We had a brief discussion about preparing for budget season earlier. I did want to add one thing, and that is I would recommend that all the counselors read the Financial Restructuring Board Comprehensive Report. There are many suggestions there, and perhaps some of those could be incorporated into the 2020 budget if we haven't already acted on them in the past. So I created links for all of those documents that I mentioned, the 2020 budget, our 5-year plan, and that financial restructuring board plan. Those are all on the city's website, so please refer to that document as well.
Thank you. Public Safety, Councilor Gibbs?
Well, we had our monthly meeting this evening, and all those items have been moved to the agenda. So I don't have anything additional to add.
Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor Rensselaer?
Yes, there was a board meeting on Tuesday. Once again, I had a conflict and was unable to attend, but I will be getting the minutes shortly.
Thank you. I don't think Councilor McFarland is with us right now, so are there any other additional councilor reports or any other items at this time before we begin our meeting? Well, then we'd like to take a 2 or 3 minute recess until 5:30 and we'll begin the council meeting. Thank you. Well, it seems like a very long month.
Hey, Jeff,
It's been like that. Next month? It must be next month.
do you want to meet before our infrastructure meeting next week, or no? Infrastructure's not next week, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't check my mail. I'm sorry, infrastructure's not next week, governance is next week. But the next time we have one,
Sure, good idea. Great. Thanks.
hi, can we help you? 5:30. So 4:30 is when we have our committee meetings, and all of us as counselors, we are liaisons to the various departments. So tonight was public safety. So we just talk about the public safety agenda, and then those items go to the regular agenda. So the actual meeting is at 5:30. Okay.
So our government teacher also was on fine.
Oh.
So is there a way that we can just get a signature over here for like the public safety?
Sure. Yeah, I saw you walk in.
Thank you.
Okay, so what do you want me to put in here? Do you want me to put
We
that?
just need you to sign in the book of the representative.
Yeah.
Because we already filled the rest of it.
Anything else that you want me to put in there for you? Or?
I think that's okay.
Oh.
Thank you.
So the real question is, are you learning anything when you come to these meetings?
Yes. I mean, I've been to quite a few before, so. But some of the stuff.
That was really interesting. I didn't know any of that. I knew Sam and Rand, but I didn't know all that other information, so.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah. 15 seconds. We have to we have to do. We got the agreement that if we had to go and send out for additional sewer or wastewater or McDonald's or member they'll end up so we should be they should be
Yes, you should pay the first people that you get the money. That's correct.
what's happening by me signing, I don't know.
I don't know. That's the plan, the procedure. I don't know. Push these first.
Okay. Counselors? It is. Who's missing? Jeff Moore?
Patrick and Jeff.
Patrick's not coming back, I don't think, is he? We'll begin tonight's council meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Armstrong? Counselor Kelly?
Here?
Counselor Gibbs?
Here.
Counselor Ensel?
Here.
Counselor McFarland? Counselor Moore?
Here.
Just one item I sent to the council and the media, the update for our annual stress index. The good news is we've gone from moderate fiscal stress, which is the second worst category, to susceptible to fiscal stress. which is the third worst category. No designation is actually the preferred category. And we were in no designation for a lot of years until our fund balance was spent down. That put us into the moderate fiscal stress. We just missed the very worst category by 0.8 points. We had 64.2 based on the 2017 data instead of 65. And then we just barely got out of moderate fiscal stress into susceptible by 0.4, 0.6 points. We had, I think, 54.6 instead of 55 to 65 being that moderate scale. So we're making improvements. That's also in line with the Moody's improvement up, if you recall, last summer where they changed their outlook and noted that the very difficult decisions that you're making are working, and if we can continue doing them for 2 or 3 years, we're confident we can get down back to no designation in the stress score, back up to positive outlook in the Moody's report, back down to very good interest rates for our debt, and back to a much more sustainable city. So I think we're making progress. It's tough. We've got a couple more years, a few more years of difficult work, obviously, but it's nice to see that experts are recognizing the hard work and responding accordingly. So thank you all for your hard work on that. That's all I have to say today.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on September 19th, 2019 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Gibbs. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending September 25th, 2019 in the amount of $501,016.76 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Gibbs, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passed. You offered your reports during our recent working session. Is there any additional reports you'd like to offer at this time? Seeing none, resolved, the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councillor Gibbs and seconded by Councillor Runsell. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passed. No correspondences or recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills audited by the Common Council for the week ending September 27th, 2019 in the amount of $1,266,953.25 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passed. This is an opportunity now for the public to please come address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight. There are agendas just outside the door. There will be other public comment options at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, please continue.
Whereas on October 25th, 2018, the Common Council authorized the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Clinton County Board of Realtors for proposed improvements to and sponsorship of the dog park located adjacent to the Creighton Center. And whereas the mayor and the Clinton County Board of Realtors signed an MOU on August 28th, 2019, detailing the obligations of both parties with respect to the dog park improvements. And whereas the Board of Realtors has provided an improvement plan showing the proposed improvements as required by the MOU, whereas the MOU requires the city to accept the proposed improvement plan prior to any work being performed. Resolved, the Common Council approves the improvement plan provided by the Clinton County Board of Realtors and authorizes the Board of Realtors to begin work on the improvements, and it's further resolved, the Common Council serving as lead agency hereby finds and determines that this resolution constitutes a type 2 action such that no further environmental review is required.
Moved by Councillor Ansel, seconded by Councillor Gibbs. Discussion?
Mayor, I'm sorry, I believe Mike Hoffman is here to speak to the group's plans for the dog park, if the council cares to.
It'd be nice to hear.
Please.
Thank you all for allowing this. We started this actually as a we were cleaning the city beach, and one May, it was too windy. So I believe it was around 2014, they asked, well, why don't we just clean the dog park? Well, dog park was a mess. We cleaned it up. We got the idea that we really could make it a benefit to the city. If it was cleaned up, it was fixed up, had some various play action things in it or whatever. We realized it was gonna cost money, and the Clinton County Board of Realtors is 140 members strong, where we don't have enormous resources, but we do have the ability to raise funds. So one of our groups started out and we raised about $2,300 in the first 2 years. At that point, it's now 2016, we already had talked to the city, the prior administration, and had tacit approval to go ahead, otherwise we wouldn't have started. We felt we could raise the rest of the money within the next year, so we applied for a grant from the National Association of Realtors. Maximum amount of that grant is $5,000. Most grants are funded in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. We went through, submitted the application, interviewed, did a couple Skype interviews and whatever, and we actually got $5,000 in funding. We then set about, that established the budget of about 10.2 to 11.1, depending on how things were going to go. We're sitting now with roughly $7,800 in the bank. We raised another $2,000, which was a contribution from Casella, which was generous on their part. And then we made the rest of it up through another event that we ran in February of 2018. It then took us over a year to find someone who would do a drawing that you see behind me. This is the 6th attempt that we attempted to get someone to do it. Again, small, and we're willing to pay, but we weren't willing to spend $10,000 for it out. Small project, everyone's busy, everyone's crazy, can't get it done. Finally, upon the 6th request, we were able to get Mr. Lombard to come out. We met with members of the staff, and we went through the park. He did his measurements. He understood what our scope of the work was. The MOU had restricted our scope to half of the park because we wanted to keep it open while work was being done, because we felt, again, we held a meeting at the Elks Lodge for members of the community to come up and comment, and their biggest comment was, don't close it. You know, we need it open, we can't close even for 2 weeks. You close it for 2 weeks, it's just not, it's not gonna serve our purposes. So part of that meeting, that was one part. The other part was they also wanted a part just for small dogs, which we have incorporated into this plan as well. Basically, the MOU states that we have to present everything before doing it for approval, which is perfectly understandable, and that's why we're here today. And we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Any questions?
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request of the Common Council approves the City Chamberlain to adjust the 2019 general fund budget.
Beth, I'd like to waive the reading of 7B, C, D, E, and F and move them forward.
Moved by Councilor Ensel, second by Councilor Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the items themselves?
We had a lot of discussion about this during our work session.
Mhm.
Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the Common Council approves Canadian Pacific Railway to close Miller Street and have a short-term detour for maintenance of the railroad crossing. The anticipated road closure is requested from Monday, September 30th through Friday, October 4th, 2019, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Ensel. Discussion?
Just once again, I'd like to reiterate the need for communication to the general public about the road, about Miller Street being closed. It is a busy street with the post office on it, so on. And I think the more publicity and marketing and information that can get out and communication about the road closed, the better it will be and less of an inconvenience for people who travel.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes,
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves the city chamberlain to authorize executing a 3-month extension of the city's current banking agreement with Glens Falls National Bank, citing the same terms and conditions as the 5-year agreement expiring on September 30th, 2019. A formal RFP will be issued to all local banks in October 2019 to solicit quotes for a new 5-year banking agreement to take effect, beginning with the city's fiscal period beginning on January 1st, 2020.
And as always, I recuse myself completely in all discussion and delegate all authority to signing this to the Chamberlain or our legal counsel. We have a first by Councillor Moore and a second by Councillor Gibbs. Discussion?
I'm just curious as to why we didn't, knowing that the agreement was going to end at the end of the month, why there wasn't any movement earlier for an RFP that we have to do
The
that.
RFP's all written, ready to go out. The reason that I wanted to send it out in October for January 1st is to set it up with our fiscal period expiration of the agreement at the same time as the new fiscal period arrives. But also, we were requested to make some changes to the RFP that we have to go through because the banking industry has changed in the last 5 years.
Is that through our audit, or is that through the audit, or?
No, it was through several feelers that I had out to banks, and they said, you know, the way you wrote it before is a little bit too restrictive, and, you know, things have changed, so I have to make some modifications to it.
Okay.
So that's delayed it a
Okay,
little bit,
thank you.
but we were ready to send it out mid-August, and it came to light that, you know, there's changes that should be made because of lockbox issues, investment issues, interest rate issues, and then as well, I said, well, geez, it makes more sense to have this be a fiscal year termination date too.
Thank you, Richard.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
yes,
Whereas during its meeting on June 13th, 2019, the Common Council authorized the mayor and the Director of Community Development to pursue a formal and binding cooperative agreement with Clinton County to accomplish a reconfiguration of the county's government center parking lot. And whereas Clinton County has received bids for construction services related to the reconfiguration of that parking lot, and whereas Clinton County and the city of Plattsburgh both find that the agreement serves as a proper public purpose, resolved, the Common Council hereby authorizes the mayor to sign a cooperative agreement with Clinton County, which requires the city to pay $64,000 to the county for those construction costs related to extending the existing county government center parking lot to the existing boundary of Court Street, requires the county to make 66 parking spaces of various sizes available for public use in the new lot once construction activities are complete, and details how the new lot is to be administered by both county and city officials.
Moved by Councillor Gibson, second by Councillor Moore. Discussion? I, for one, am very grateful for the collaboration between the county and the city. I think it's a really good example of enlightened mutual interest. It can be very good for the people using the county building, but obviously it's going to be very good for the city since we've begun parking enforcement the last couple of years, and any opportunity to make additional parking and bring that into our enforcement regime is very helpful to the city. So thank you, county. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
yes,
Resolution authorizing discontinuance of property assessment case filed by Walgreens Company, Rad, New York, Plattsburgh property. Whereas Walgreens Company, Rad, New York, Plattsburgh property filed an Article 7 real property assessment review case against the city, challenging the 2019 assessment on real property located at 357 Cornelia Street, Plattsburgh, New York, tax map parcel number 207.17-2-2.1, And whereas the property located at 357 Cornelia Street, Plattsburgh, New York, was previously owned by Rite Aid Corporation and was the subject of litigation that was settled in 2017. Whereas the assessed value of the property is still controlled under the settlement terms, and Walgreen Company has therefore agreed to discontinue the pending case without any reduction to the assessment. And now therefore be it resolved that the common council hereby authorizes and directs the mayor, city assessor, corporation council, and/or its special counsel to execute a stipulation of discontinuance and take any additional steps necessary to discontinue the pending litigation.
Moved by Counselor Ansel, second by Counselor Kelly. Discussion. And this is again very good work on the part of our council that assists us in this. Roll call.
Council Kelly?
Yes.
Council Gibbs?
Yes.
Council Ensel?
Yes.
Council Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves one police department employee to attend DCJS Office of Public Safety, National Highway Safety Administration's DWI detection and standardized field sobriety testing instructor course from November 12th through 15th, 2019 in Syracuse, New York. The total cost will not exceed $843.75, and it will be expensed out of the asset forfeiture fund.
Moved by Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Ansel. Discussion. Roll call.
Council Kelly?
Yes.
Council Gibbs?
Yes.
Council Ensel?
Yes.
Council Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves one police department employee to attend Division of Criminal Justice Services Alert Active Shooter Level 1 Training the Trainer course from December 16th through 20th, 2019 in Albany, New York. Total cost will not exceed $1,146, and it will be expensed out of the asset forfeiture fund.
Moved by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Moore. Discussion. Note this is a train the trainer course. This is work by both of our police chiefs in actually getting more trainers situated within our first responders, and this is a benefit to the entire broad community. Not only do we use these facilities to train our own staff, but we're making those resources available to other first responders as well. So very good work to have that imagination. Thank you. Roll call.
Council Kelly?
Yes.
Council Gibbs?
Yes.
Council Ensel?
Yes.
Council Moore?
Yes.
Are there any resolutions for initial consideration tonight? Or any additional new business or council reports?
Well, I would like to make a statement. I received an email from one of my constituents who's been communicating with me back and forth when we had local law P5 up on the agenda. And it brought to my attention that earlier this week, News Channel 5 did a very short coverage of that. And it was very, very misleading. The tag on it said feral cat, something to do with feral cats. And it said a new law in Plattsburgh discourages caring for stray cats. And then the lead quote was, leaving bowls of warm milk out for stray could make you responsible for any damage those cats may cause and a whole lot more. The entire story was very misleading. I was very disappointed by what I consider sloppy reporting. I want to set the record straight that that is not what the law says. And just wanted to clarify that, because when he contacted me, he thought there had been an amendment to the law because the story said it was a new law. So I just wanted to clarify that nothing has changed. The law was recently passed, right? We got a notification from New York State. And so I just want to be clear about that and allay any fears. Nothing has changed. The law went through the way that it was written, so that's all.
And should also note that the reporter tried to contact me, left a voicemail message. I didn't receive it until later on that evening, and called back the next day, and by then the story was out, so.
Yep. Ran the story Tuesday, so.
So I guess technically, I don't know, I didn't see the story. There was no city comment, I believe, on it.
Something to the effect of, the attempt was made to retrieve a comment and couldn't be returned or something like that. It's basically attempted to contact and nothing, couldn't get a verification from council, so.
Any other additional new business or council reports?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Neither Councilors Armstrong nor Councilor McFarland are here tonight to address it, so I thought I would try, and I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but the rec complex is being studied, and there are rumors flying all over the community that we're closing this operation or we're closing that operation, and I'd just like to say that none of those decisions have been made as of today. We have 4 services we provide in the rec complex, what we call the rec complex, and one of those being the gym, the Crate Center, the city beach, and the city marina. And all 4 of those are unsustainable. We can't find a way to make them budget neutral, and we've discussed that among ourselves some, but absolutely no decisions have been made as to what to do about that. We also have studied the value of those programs quite a bit to see what kinds of attendance figures we have for those services. And I look forward to next week when Councilor Armstrong will be here and Councilor McFarland will be here, and they will discuss in great detail where we stand with those 4 city services. But until that time, I would recommend that no one jump to any conclusions. As of today, we are not closing the gym, we are not closing the city beach, we are not closing the marina, and we are not closing the Crate Center. Although all of them are under consideration, no decisions have been made, so I would recommend that any discussion about that wait until next week when Councilors Armstrong and McFarland are here. And they will give us an excellent presentation, I'm sure, about how those organizations stand financially and also how they stand in terms of their value to the community. So that would be your opportunity to speak up then, although you are certainly welcome to do so today on any of those 4 programs if you have an interest in those. Just want to squelch rumors. Rumors are not good. Facts are better. So let's wait for some facts, I would recommend. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other additional council reports or any business? Seeing none, this is the opportunity for the public to please come address the council on any issues of mutual concern. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Moore. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I haven't seen any correspondences from the supervisor. I did see an article in the paper the other day about it. Sure. There's a 1991 agreement between the town and the